They say that wood never lies. If you spend 40 years as a master carpenter like I have, you learn that pretty quickly. Oak is honest, is stubborn and strong. Pine is soft, it gives under pressure. You can sand the surface, you can stain it to look like something's not. But underneath, the grain always tells the truth. I wish people were more like wood. My name is Robert, but most people call me Bob. I'm 67 years old. For the last 4 decades, I've lived in a craftsman-style house in the hills of Portland. My wife, Mary, and I bought this place where the neighborhood was still a bit rough around the edges. We spent every weekend for 20 years stripping old wallpaper and polishing the mahogany trim. This house was our masterpiece. It was supposed to be where we grow old together. But life doesn't always care about your plans. Mary passed away 6 months ago. Cancer. It was fast, one of those 6 months to live diagnoses that actually turned into 6 weeks. When she died, the silence in this house became a physical weight. It was like the air had turned to lead. I found myself sitting in my workshop in the basement for hours, staring at a half-finished grandfather clock. I had started carving for her birthday. I couldn't pick up the tools. My hands felt like they belonged to someone else. That's when my daughter, Jennifer Jen, showed up. Now, look, Jen has always been intense. She's a luxury real estate agent here in the city. She wears $500 shoes and drives a white Lexus that's always spotless. She always talking about the market and the leveraging assets. Honestly, I never really understood half of what she said, but she's my daughter. And she sat me down at my kitchen table 3 months ago, looking at me with those big, tearful eyes. I wanted to believe her. "Dad," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. You're not eating. You're losing weight. And Chris and I, well, we're worried. This house is too big for you to manage alone. The taxes, the maintenance, is a lot. She had her boyfriend with her, Christopher. Everyone calls him Chris. He's one of those financial advisors who looks like he spent more time at the gym than the office. He's 45, but he dresses like he's 25. He smiled at me, one of those bright, perfect teeth smiles that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Bob, listen to Jen," Chris said. "We're in between places right now. Our lease at the condo is up, and we're looking to buy something bigger. Why don't we move into the guest wing for a few months? We can help with the bills. Jen can cook, and I can handle the paperwork for the house. You've worked hard enough. It's time to let us take care of you." I should have said no. I should have seen the way Chris was looking at the original stained glass windows in the dining room, like he was calculating the retail value. But I was lonely. God, I was so lonely. So I said yes. They moved in the following Saturday. At first, it was okay. The house had noise again. Jen made dinner, mostly salad, and things that didn't have much taste, but it was nice not to eat alone. But then the care started to feel a little heavy. "Dad, did you leave the stove on again?" Jess asked one morning. Her voice was high and tight, full of fake concern. "I don't think so. Jen, I was just making tea." "You did, Dad. I had to turn it off. It's the 3rd time this week." She looked at Chris, who gave a slow, sad nod. "We really need to keep an eye on your memory." I felt a chill go down my spine. I was sure I'd turn it off. I'm a carpenter. I'm obsessed with safety. But then I started forgetting other things. My keys, the mail. I'd walk into my workshop and completely forget what I was looking for. A week later, Chris brought me a glass of water and a little blue pill. The doctor called Bob, Chris said, leaning against the door frame of my workshop. He saw your last blood results, said your cortisol levels are through the roof. It's stress, Bob, grief. These are just some high-grade supplements to help you stay sharp, to clear the brain fog, you know? Supplements. I looked at the pill. It didn't have any markings on it. I don't remember talking to Dr. Miller about supplements. Chris laughed, a short, dry sound. Jen handled the call. You know how she is. She's like a dog with a bone when it comes to your health. Just take it, Bob, for her. So I took it. The fog didn't clear. It got worse. Within an hour of taking that pill, the world started to feel like it was made of cotton. Voices sounded like they were coming from underwater. I'd sit in my chair by the window, watching the Portland rain hit the glass. I'd lose track of time. Sometimes I'd look up and 2 hours had passed, but I couldn't remember a single thought I'd had. And then I started seeing Mary. It started at night. I'd wake up, and she'd be sitting at the foot of the bed. She wouldn't speak. She just looked at me with this look of pure, heartbreaking sadness. Mary? I'd whisper, my heart hammering against my ribs. She'd vanished. But just like that, the first time I told Jen, she burst into tears. Oh, Dad, that's a hallucination. It's a common symptom of, of late-stage decline. Chris, we might need to look into that place we talk about. Silver Oaks. They have specialized memory wing. Silver Oaks? I sat up, trying to shake the heaviness from my limbs. That's a nursing home, Jen. I'm not going to a home. It's a senior living boutique, Bob. Chris corrected me. His voice smooth as silk. Top of the line. But let's not worry about that yet. Let's just focus on getting you stable. That night, I couldn't sleep. The supplement was wearing off. My head felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. I got up to get some water, moving as quietly as I could in my slippers. As I passed the kitchen, I heard voices, low, urgent whispers. I stopped. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but something in the tone of Jen's voice made my blood run cold. Is he still seeing her? That was Chris. Every night, Jen replied. Her voice didn't sound worried anymore. It sounded impatient. The dough is perfect. Dr. Vance said the Mary sightings would start right about now. He's already signed off on the initial observation report. One more incident, we can initiate the involuntary hold. Good, Chris said. I heard the clink of a glass, probably my expensive scotch, because I just got the appraisal back on the house. With the lot split, we're looking at 1.8 million, easy, plus workshop tools. Some of those old saws are worth a fortune on eBay. I just want it done, Chris, Jen said. There was a pause. I'm tired of fleeing the loving daughter. It's exhausting. I stood there in the dark hallway. My hands gripped the door frame so hard the wood groaned. My heart wasn't just racing. It was breaking. My daughter. My own flesh and blood. She wasn't trying to save me. She was trying to erase me. I turned to go back to my room, but my foot caught a loose floorboard, the one I'd been meaning to fix for months. I let out a sharp crack. The whispering stopped instantly. "Dad?" Jen's voice called out. It was sweet again, caring, terrifying. "Is that you? Are you having another episode?" I heard her footsteps coming toward the hallway. Fast. I didn't have time to get back to my room. I looked at the basement door, the entrance to my workshop. I slipped inside and locked it just as I saw the shadow of her feet appear under the kitchen door. I stood in the pitch-black workshop, surrounded by the smell of sawdust and old lacquer. My hands were shaking, but the fog was gone. The anger had burned it away. I looked over the grandfather clock. It was tall, dark, and hollow, just like my life had become. If they want to watch me, I thought, my eyes narrowing in the dark, then I'm going to give them something to look at. But first, I needed to make a phone call. I reached into the hidden compartment under my workbench and pulled out the old burner phone my son, Noah, had given me months ago for emergencies. I hit the only contact in the phone. "Noah?" I whispered when he picked up. "It's Dad. You were right. They're coming for house." "And Noah, I think they're trying to kill me." I spent the rest of that night huddled on my cold workbench stool. The basement was cold, and my bones ached. But I didn't dare to go back upstairs. Every time the house groaned. The way old houses do when the temperature drops, I jumped. I kept expecting the basement door to fly open and for Chris to be standing there with that shark-like smile of his. "Dad?" Noah's voice had been a whisper on the burner phone. It was steady. "Listen to me. Do not let them know you heard anything. If they think you're onto them, we'll move faster. I'm in California for a security conference, but I'm catching the first flight back to Portland tomorrow morning. Just play the part, okay? Be confused, Bob. They want you to be." Play the part. It sounded simple, but my heart was still hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. When the sun finally started to bleed through the small, dirty basement windows, I forced myself to go back upstairs. I moved slowly, shuffling my feet, letting my shoulders slump. I made sure my hands were a mess. I walked into the kitchen. Jen was already there, hovering over the curry. "Good morning, Dad," she said. She didn't look at me directly. She was busy scrolling through her phone. "You were up late. I heard you in the basement." Was I? I rubbed my eyes, letting my voice sound thick and shaky. I thought I heard Mary calling me from the workshop. I went out to check, but she wasn't there. Jen finally looked up. For a split second, I saw a flash of triumph in her eyes. It was gone in a heartbeat, placed by that sugary fake pity. "Oh, Dad, that's what I was telling Chris. Your mind is tired. You need to rest." "Maybe you're right, Jen," I sighed, sitting at the table. I feel so heavy. My head feels like it's full of gray oil. "That's just the grief," she said, sliding a glass of orange juice toward me. Next to it was a blue pill. "Take your supplement. It'll help clear things up." I picked it up. I felt Chris watching me from the doorway of the living room. I didn't look at him. I put the pill into my mouth, took a big gulp of juice, and made a show of swallowing. But as I leaned forward to wipe my mouth with a napkin, I let the pill slip from under my tongue and into the folds of the paper. "There," I said, giving them a weak smile. "All gone." Chris walked over and patted me on the shoulder. His grip was just a little too tight, a warning disguised as a gesture of affection. "That's the spirit, Bob. We're just trying to keep you safe." He walked over to the wall near the thermostat. I hadn't noticed it before, but it was a new little black dome mounted near the ceiling. It was small, no bigger than a golf ball. "Hey Bob," Chris said, pointing to it. "I finished setting the new smart home system yesterday. It's got motion sensors and cameras on the main areas. You know, just in case you have another episode or if you fall while we're at work. It links straight to my phone. I can check you on 24/7. My stomach did a slow, sick flip. 24/7. That's very thoughtful, Chris," I managed to say. "Nothing's too good for family," he replied. I spent the next few hours sitting in my recliner in the living room, staring at the TV. I didn't even turn it on. I was just watching that little black eye in the corner of the room. I started looking around. There was another over the front door, one in the hallway, one in the kitchen. They were everywhere. Around noon, Jen and Chris left for client meetings. I waited until I heard the Lexus pull out of the driveway before I moved. I didn't go to the kitchen. I went straight to the front porch. I needed air, and I needed to see someone who didn't want to drug me. Then I saw Barbara. Barbara lived 2 houses down. She and Mary had been best friends for 30 years. Barbara was a retired ER nurse, tough as nails, and could spot a liar from a mile away. She was out on her lawn, deadheading some roses. But the second she saw me, she dropped her shears and marched over. "Bob? Good heavens, you look like death worms over," she said, leaning over the porch railing. She lowered her voice, her eyes darting to my front door. "Is everything okay? I haven't seen you at the hardware store in weeks. And that daughter of yours, she's been acting like she's the Queen of England, telling everyone you're unavailable." "Barbara, I'm in trouble," I whispered. My voice cracked. She climbed the steps and sat next to me on the swing, shielding our conversation from the house. I knew it. I've seen that Chris character. He looks like a vulture in a slim-fit suit. What's going on? I told her about the pills. I told her about the hallucination. "Blue pills? No markings." Barbara's face went hard. "Bob, listen to me. I've seen those before. They sound like a heavy, dirty sedative, maybe something for bipolar disorder, or even early-stage schizophrenia. If you're taking those and you don't need them, they'll scramble your brain. They'll make you see things, hear things. They'll make you look like you've lost your mind. They're trying to put me in Silver Oaks," I said. Barbara's eyes widened. "Silver Oaks? Bob, that's Blakeley's fortress. Once you're in there under an involuntary hold, you don't come out until your bank account is empty. My sister worked there for a month before she quit in tears. It's not a home. It's a warehouse for the elderly." Her reached into her pocket and handed me a small, clear plastic bag. "Give me one of those pills next time. I have a friend at the lab. We'll find out exactly what they're feeding you. In the meantime, don't take another one, not a single one." "I won't," I promised. As Barbara left, I felt a tiny spark of hope. I wasn't alone. I went back inside, but the house felt different now. It felt like a trap. I walked toward the guest wing. the area where Jen and Chris were staying. I knew I shouldn't, but I had to know. Their door was unlocked. The room was spotless, except for the leather briefcase on the nightstand. I opened it, my heart hammering. Inside were files, lots of them. I saw a brochure for Silver Oaks, but underneath it was something worse. It was petition for emergency guardianship. My name was at the top. Most of the boxes were already checked. Disoriented, hallucinatory, incapable of managing finances, danger to self. And then I saw it, a printed email from a guy named Michael. Jen. The appraiser say mahogany trim and the original fixtures alone were thought $150,000. If we strip them before the sale, Dr. Vance is ready for the Friday evaluation. Just make sure the episodes continue. Once he's in Silver Oaks, I'll handle the transfer of the deed to the LLC. Love you. See you this weekend. I felt like I'd been kicked in the teeth. Love you. Jen wasn't just Chris. There was someone else, a Michael. She was playing Chris. She was playing me. She was playing everyone. I heard the garage door open a groan. They were back. I scrambled out of the room and made it to the basement door just as the kitchen door opened. I took the stairs two at a time, my heart skimming in my chest. I sat at my workbench, gasping for air. I looked at the grandfather clock. It was Mary's clock. I spent months carving the intricate vines and flowers into the dark wood. It was beautiful. It was a masterpiece of patience and love. And now it was going to be my witness. I picked up a drill and a 2mm bit. My hands were steady now. I wasn't a confused old man anymore. I was a man with a plan. I hollowed out a tiny space behind the clock's face, right where the number 12 sat. It was the perfect height. If I moved the clock to the living room, it would have a clear view of the sofa. I reached into a secret compartment under my workbench and pulled out a small wireless camera Noah had mailed me weeks ago just in case. It was pinhole lens, no bigger than a freckle. I tucked into the wood, aligning it perfectly. Okay, Jen, I whispered into the silence of the workshop. You want to watch me? Fine. But from now on, Mary is going to be watching you. I heard footsteps above me. Heavy, confident footsteps. Dad? Chris' voice boomed from the top of the stairs. You down there again? It's time for your afternoon vitamins. I looked at the clock. I looked at the camera. Coming, Chris. I shouted back, my voice trembling with a fake fears that was becoming easier and easier to mimic. I was just looking for my saw. I can't seem to find anything these days. I walked up the stairs, leaving the clock in the shadows. The game was on. There's a specific rhyme to woodworking. It's the language of taps and scrapes, the smell of walnut dust, and the steady hum of cinder. In my workshop, I was king, but upstairs, in my own living room, I was a prisoner being watched by a little black plastic eyes. I spent Wednesday morning finishing the grandfather clock. It stood 7 feet tall, a dark, elegant pillar of American walnut. I had carved intricate ivy leaves. Climbing up the sides, Mary's favorite plant. It was supposed to be her 45th anniversary gift. Now it was a hollow monument to a woman who wasn't here to protect me. I worked with a precision I hadn't felt in years. The fog from the pills were completely gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. My hands didn't shake as I used a fine point ratio to hollow out a tiny pea-sized nut in one of the carved ivy leaves near the clock's face. I slid the pinhole camera Noah had sent me into the hole. It fit perfectly. It was invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it with a magnifying glass. I ran the tin wire down in the inside of the clock casing, hiding it behind the weights, and connected it to a small battery pack and a wireless hotspot I'd hidden in the base. "Okay, Mary," I whispered, patting the cool wood. "Let's see what they are really saying when I'm not in the room." I walked to the top of the basement stairs and let out a long, shaky sigh. I made my voice sound thin and frail. "Chris, Jens, could you help me with something?" A moment later, Chris appeared at the top of the stairs, looking annoyed. He had his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing a gold watch, and that probably cost more than my first car. "What is this, Bob?" "I'm on a conference call." "It's the clock," I said, pointing behind me. "I finished it. I want to move it upstairs. I want it in the living room, right next to Mary's favorite wing-back chair. I think it'll help me feel closer to her." Chris looked at Jen, who had appeared behind him. She softened her expression, that fake Carrie look sliding back to the place. "Oh, Dad, that's a lovely idea." Chris helped him. "I'll make him feel better." What she was really thinking was, if he's happy, he's easier to manage. Chris grumbled but came down. Together, we grunted and heaved the heavy clock up the narrow basement stairs. Chris did most of the lifting, his face turning red with the effort. We positioned it exactly where I wanted it, angled perfectly toward the sofa and the coffee table where they usually sat to discuss my finances. "There," Chris panted, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Happy now?" "Yes," I said, leaning against the wall and pretending to catch my breath. "Thank you, Chris. It looks right there." That evening, the performance continued. Jen brought me your dinner, a bowl of lukewarm soup, and the blue pill. I went through the motions perfectly. I swallowed the pill with a big gulp of water, tucked it under my tongue, and then sat in my chair, letting my jaw hang slightly slack. I stared at the spot on the wall for 20 minutes, pretending to drifting away. "He's really out of it tonight," I heard Chris whisper from the kitchen. "Good," Jen replied. "The more he fades, the less the neighbors will question when the ambulance comes on Friday." I waited until they went into the living room to watch a movie. I excused myself, saying I was exhausted, and shuffled my way up the stair to bedroom. I locked the door quietly. I reached under my mattress and pulled out the burner phone Noah had mailed me. I opened app he'd installed. The screen flickered to life, and suddenly I was looking at my own living room in high definition. The night vision was crystal clear. Jen and Chris were on the sofa. They weren't watching the movie. They were looking at the laptop spread out on the coffee table. "I've got the disk transfer ready," Chris said, tapping the screen. "Once the doctor signs the emergency hold on Friday morning, I'll use the power of attorney to sign the house over to the Northwest Heritage LLC. By the time Noah even realized what's happened, the house will be sold that developer in Seattle. Jen nodded, sipping a glass of wine. And the insurance? Did you increase the premium like I asked? Done, Chris said. He leaned back, a hot look crossing his face. But Jen, we needed to be careful. If he falls too soon after being admitted to Silver Oaks, the investigators might look into the sedation levels. Jen's voice went cold. It was a version of my daughter I had been seeing, hard, greedy, and devoid of any soul. Don't worry about the investigators. My friend Michael has a contact at the medical examiner's office. We just need him in the facility. Once he's in Silver Oaks, he belongs to them. And once he's gone, we split the $2 million life insurance policy 3 days. 3 ways. 3 ways? Chris sat down, his voice rising. I thought we were doing this together. Who's the third? Jen hesitated, then smiled, a slow, cruel curve of her lips. Michael, Chris. He's the one who set up the offshore accounts in the Caymans. And he was one make sure the paper trail stayed hidden. We couldn't do this without him. Chris looked like he wanted to argue, but he just sighed and grabbed the wine bottle. Fine, as long as I get my 600,000. I'm tired of playing a nursemaid to a senile old man who smelled like sawdust. I sat on the edge of my bed, the phone trembling my hand. My stomach felt like it was full of ice. Michael. The name on the email. My daughter wasn't just killing me for the house. She was planning to kill me for an insurance policy I didn't even know I had. She had forget my signature on a life insurance plan, and she was cheating on the man he was using to commit the crime. I heard my phone vibrate. It was text from Noah. Dad, I'm at the airport. I'll be in Poland 3 hours. I've been looking to Dr. Rick Vance. He's not a real psychiatrist. He's a consultant who lost his license in California 5 years ago for taking kickbacks from nursing homes. He's a criminal, Dad. They all are. I looked at the screen of the burned phone. Jane was laughing now, leaning her head on Chris' shoulder, acting like the perfect loving girlfriend. The betrayal was so deep, it felt like it had reached my very bones. I had taught this girl how to ride a bike. I had stayed up all night when she had a flu. I had worked double shifts at the construction site for years just so she could have the nice things she wanted. And now she was counting down the hours until I was dead. I looked at the grandfather clock at the screen. The ivy leaves I had carved with such love were now the eyes of my revenge. Friday morning, I whispered into the dark room. That's when the evaluation is. That's when the ambulance comes. I reached into my nightstand and pulled out a small heavy object. It was an old brass compass Mary had given me on our wedding day. I gripped it tight. I wasn't going to Silver Oaks. I spent the rest of the night watching them through the clock. I watched them toast their new life in the Caribbean. I watched them laugh at my expense. I waited. Because the thing about a grandfather clock is a machine of perfect timing, and my time was coming. Friday morning arrived with a gray heavy rain that turned the Poland sky into a color of west sidewalk. I hadn't slept a wink. At 3 in the morning, I'd crawled out my basement window, the one hidden behind the overgrown bushes, to meet my son, Noah. We stood in the cold mud for 10 minutes. Noah looked like He'd aged 5 years in a single night. He was wearing his work jacket, the one with the tech company logo on it, but his eyes were hard as flint. The local police are on standby. Dad, Noah whispered, his breath fogging in the air. I gave him the login to the clock's camera. They've been watching the live stream for the last hour, but they won't move until the doctor actually signs the papers. They need the act of fraud to be complete, so it sticks in court. Can you do this? I gripped his arm. My hands were freezing, but my heart was a furnace. I've spent 40 years making wood look like something it's not, son. I can play the part for one more morning. Good, Noah said, checking his watch. I'll be 2 blocks away. The second that ambulance pulls into the driveway, I'm calling the sheriff. Just stay safe, Dad. Don't let them touch you if you can help it. I crawled back into the house, shivering, and waited. At 5:30, I heard the front door open. Not a knock, just a key turning in the lock. It was first red flag. A real doctor doesn't have a key to your house. I was sitting in my armchair by the wing-back chair, right next to the grandfather clock. I had a blanket over my legs. I let my head loll to the side and kept my eyes half closed, looking at the vacant as a Sunday morning. He's right there, I heard Jen whisper. I looked up. Jen was standing in the hallway with a man I'd never seen before. This was Dr. Rick Vance. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, with a tan that looked like it came from a bottle and a suit that was just a little too tight around the middle. He smelled like expensive cologne and cheap cigarettes. Mr. Reynolds, Dr. Vance said, his voice dripping with a fake, oily kindness. He walked over and shone a pen light into my eyes. I didn't blink. I just stared past him at the clock. Mary, I whispered, letting my lower lip tremble. Is it time for tea yet? Jen stepped forward, her hand over her heart like she was in a damn soap opera. See, doctor? He's been like this for days. He doesn't even recognize me half the time. He thinks the clock is my mother. Dr. Vance scribbled something on the clipboard. Classic cognitive dissociation. Very advanced. It's a blessing you calling me when you did, Jennifer. He's clearly a danger to himself. I just want him to be safe, Jen said, wiping a thick tear from her cheek. I can't sleep at night knowing he might wander off or leave the stove on. Chris walked into the room then, looking smug. He was holding a stack of papers. Doctor, we have the emergency admission forms right here. Jennifer and I have already signed the family's consent. We just need your medical certification. Vance didn't even look at me. He walked over the coffee table, right in front of the grandfather clock. He laid the papers down. It'll be $15,000 for a expedited evaluation, and the signature Vance said. His voice had lost all the fake kindness. It was just business now, cash, like we agreed. My heart skipped a bit. 15,000. They were buying my life for the price of a used car. I watched through my eyelashes as Jen reached into her designer purse and pulled out a thick brown envelope. She slid it across the table. Vance opened it, thanked the bills with his thumb, and nodded. Perfect, Vance said. He took a pen and signed the bottom of the form with a flourish. Robert Renaud is now officially a ward of the state under your temporary guardianship. The ambulance is 5 minutes away. They will take him straight to Silver Oaks. And the house? Chris asked, his voice shaking with greed. I can file the deed transfer now. The second he's in the van is all yours, Vance replied. I sat there, frozen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump up and wrap my carpenter's hands around the van's neck. But I stayed still. I watched the clock. The little pinhole lens was catching every second of it. The money, the signature, the cold-blood betrayal. Suddenly, Jan's phone buzzed. He stepped into the kitchen, but she didn't realize the clock's microphone was powerful enough to catch her voice. Hello? She whispered. Michael? Yeah, it's happening. He's signing right now. No, I haven't told Chris about the insurance policy yet. I'll handle him later. Once the accident happens at the facility, I'm leaving Chris at the airport and meeting you in Miami. Yeah, I love you too. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My daughter was going to kill me, and he was going to leave her partner in crime in the lodge. She was a monster, a beautiful, high-heeled monster. She came back into the living room, her face a mask of sorrow. Dad, the nice men are coming to take you for a little checkup, okay? It'll just be for a little while. Mary says the clock is wrong. I murdered, my voice cracking. She says the time is up. Chris laughed. Yeah, Bob, time is definitely up. The sound of siren drifted through the rain. It was faint at first, then louder. Blue and red lights started bouncing off the living room walls, reflecting the glass of grandfather clock. They're here early, Chris said, looking out the window. I thought they were coming at 7. The sooner the better, Vance said, stuffing the envelope of cash into his briefcase. Let's get him loaded up before the neighbors start nosing around. I heard the heavy thud of boots on the porch. The front door was flung open, and 2 men in the white uniform burst in, carrying a folded-up gurney. Robert Renault, one of the men asked. He had a thick neck and a face like a brick. He didn't look like a paramedic. He looked like a bouncer. That's him, Jen said, pointing at me. Please be gentle. He's very confused. The man reached for my arm. His grip was like a vice. Come on, Pops. She said, time to go. I looked at grandfather clock one last time. I saw the little 12 at the top. It was exactly 5:45 a.m. Wait, I said. My voice wasn't thin or frail anymore. It was deep. It was the voice of the man who had built this house with his own 2 hands. The room went dead silent. Chris blinked. Jen froze. What did you say, Dad? Jen asked, her voice trembling. I said, wait. I stood up. I threw the blanket off my legs. I stood tall, my shoulder back. I looked Dr. Vance right in his lying eyes. The evaluation isn't over yet. He's having a lucid spike, Vance said, his voice tight. Grab him, now. The 2 men in white moved toward me, but they didn't get more than 2 steps. The front door didn't just open this time. It was kicked off the hinges. Police! Nobody move! 6 officers swarmed into the room, guns drawn. Behind them came Noah, his face pale with fury. Dad! Noah yelled, rushing to my side. Get away from him! Chris screamed, his face turning a sickly shade of white. We have legal guardianship. It's a private medical matter. Actually, a tall man in a sheriff's uniform said, stepping forward. He was holding a tablet in his hand. We've been watching the whole thing on a live feed, Mr. Christopher. The bribery, the fraud, and well, we especially liked the part about the accident in the army, Jennifer. Jan's knees gave out. He slumped against the wall, her mouth hanging open like a landed fish. Noah, he gasped. Noah, what did you do? I didn't do anything, Jan, Noah said, looking at her with a pure disgust. Dad did. He's a lot smarter than you gave him credit for. I looked at the grandfather clock. The pendulum was swinging, steady and true. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The time for lies was over. The living room of my beautiful craftsman home was suddenly crowded with people who didn't belong there. Police officers in tactical vest, a sheriff with stern face, and my son Noah holding me like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. The two paramedics were already face down on the rug, their hands zipped tight behind their backs. Dr. Vance was trying to maintain some dignity, clutching her leather briefcase like a sheet. This is an outrage, Vance shouted, his face turning blotchy purple. I'm a medical professional. I have a signed order of guardianship. The sheriff, a man named Miller, who looked like he had seen everything twice, walked over to the coffee table. He picked up the brown envelope full of cash and fanned it out. Does medical professional usually mean getting $15,000 in cash before sunrise, doctor? The sheriff asked. He turned the tablet around so Vance could see the screen. It was a crystal clear recording from the grandfather clock. It showed Vance counting the money. It showed him signing the paper without even looking at me. Vance's mouth went dry. He stopped shouting. But the real show was on the sofa. Chris was sitting there, his expensive watch glittering in the police flashlights, looking back and forth between Jan and the officers. He looked like a trapped animal. Wait, Chris said, his voice cracking. Sheriff, listen. This was all her idea. Jennifer approached me. She said her dad was losing it. I was just trying to help her with the finances. I didn't know about any accidents. Jan looked up from the floor, her eyes red and raw. You coward, he hissed. You wanted that money just as much as I did. I'm sorry, Jan, Chris said, standing up as an officer approached him with handcuffs. But I'm not going to prison for you. Sheriff, I will tell you everything. About the offshore accounts, about the LLC, everything. I stepped forward then. I walked right up to the sofa. The room went quiet. Even the police officer stopped talking. I looked at my daughter. I want to see the little girl who I used to sit on my lap and ask me how to build birdhouses. I wanted to see the teenager I'd taught to drive the high school parking lot, but she wasn't there. She was just a woman who had traded her soul for a Lexus and a dream of Miami. Dad, Jennifer whispered. Reached out a hand. Please, you have to understand. I was in much debt. The real estate market has been so hard. I just wanted to start over. With Michael? I asked. She froze. The blood drained from her face until she looked like a ghost. I heard the phone call. Jan, I said, my voice steady and cold. I heard you telling him you loved him. I heard you tell him you were going to leave Chris behind once the insurance money came in. You weren't just going to lock me away. You were going to let them kill me. Chris let out a roar of rage. Michael? Who the hell is Michael? He tried to lunge at her, but two officers tackled him back on the sofa. Jennifer Reynolds, the sheriff said, pulling her up from the floor. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and attempt kidnapping. And anything you say can and will be used against you. As they led her toward the door, she stopped. She looked at me one last time, her face twisted in a mask of desperation. Dad, don't let them do this. I'm your only daughter. No, I said, looking at her right in the eye. My daughter wouldn't have drugged me. My daughter wouldn't have tried to steal the roof over my head. You're just a stranger who happens to have my last name. She screamed something, the curse or a plea, I couldn't tell, as they pushed her into the back of the police cruiser. The red and blue lights faded as cars pulled away, leaving the neighborhood in a strange, ringing silence. Noah stayed with me. So did Barbara, who came running over in her bathrobe the second the police car left. She made us pots of coffee that was strong enough to peel paint, and we sat in the living rooms as the sun finally broke through the clouds. You did it, Bob, Barbara said, patting my hand. You caught the vultures. We caught them. I corrected her. The next few months were a whirlwind. The investigation was huge. It turned out Dr. Vance were part of the massive network of corrupt doctors and nursing home owners. Because of my recording, the FBI was able to shut down Silver Oaks and 4 other facilities. They found dozens of seniors who had been drugged and robbed, just like I almost was. Jan and Chris, they are still in the county jail waiting for the trial. Their lawyers trying to blame each other, but it doesn't matter. The evidence from the clock is undeniable. In Oregon, elder abuse is a serious felony. They won't be seeing the outside of the prison cell for a long, long time. I ended up selling the house. I know it was my masterpiece. Every time I walked into the kitchen, I saw Jen standing there with that blue pill. Every time I went into the guest wing, I felt the fog coming back. I couldn't live with the ghost of people who were still alive. I bought a small modern cottage 3 blocks away from Noah and his kids. It's got a small garden and a big bright workshop in the back with brand new windows. Last Saturday, I finally finished the grandfather clock. I was in the workshop, the smell of fresh cedar in the air. My grandson, Liam, came running in. He's 6 years old and has my messy hair and Mary's bright eyes. Grandpa, is it done yet? He asked, hopping from foot to foot. Almost, kiddo, I said. I picked him up and set him on the workbench. Just needs the final polish. I rubbed the wood until it glowed like honey. I didn't put the camera in this time. This time the clock wasn't just for time. I looked at the clock, then at Noah, who was standing in the doorway, smiling. I felt a peace I hadn't felt since Mary's passed away. The truth is, getting older in America can be a scary thing. People think you are invisible. They think you are slow. They think they can take what you've spent a lifetime building because you are confused. But they are wrong. I'm 68 years old now. I'm not a victim. I'm not a senior citizen to be managed. I'm a man who knows the value of his own life. I've learned that families can break, just like old furniture. But if you have the right tools and if you have the truth on your side, you can build something even stronger from the pieces. I leaned down and kissed the top of Liam's head. Come on, buddy, I said. Let's go inside. It's time for lunch. The clock behind me let a deep, resonant chime. It was perfect, on time. And for the first time in a long time, so was I.